I became a single mother at just 16 years old. I know how that sounds. People hear single mom at 16 and instantly judge. Maybe I was wild, maybe I didn't have home training, or I was chasing boys instead of books. But that's not the full story. That's not my story. My name is Sandra. I'm 22 years old. I grew up in Ibadan, Nigeria, in a middle-class family. We lived in a neat compound in a quiet neighborhood surrounded by churchgoers and civil servants. My father worked at a bank. You know the type. Early to rise, iron shirts, always reading The Guardian. My mom was a secondary school teacher, stern but deeply religious. I was their first child, the one expected to lead by example. My life was routine. Wake up by 5 a.m. for devotion, help my siblings get ready, go to school, come back, do chores, homework, then sleep. Weekends were either for lesson teachers or church programs. No time for boys, no time for nonsense. My parents believed if they kept me busy, I wouldn't go astray. I was a quiet girl, not particularly outgoing. I wasn't the loudest in class, but I was always among the best. I loved books. I dreamed of becoming a doctor. I even used to imagine myself in a white coat, saving lives at UCH. My parents had big dreams for me too. "You'll go to university straight from 6th-3, my dad would always say. No distractions. But life has a way of humbling you. It started with Daniel. He was the older brother of my classmate, Tenny. He had just finished secondary school and was waiting to rewrite GEM. I first noticed him when he came to pick Tenny up from school one afternoon. Tall, fair-skinned, neatly dressed, he greeted teachers respectfully, smiled at everyone. Girls whispered when he passed. The first time he spoke to me, I was walking home alone after school. He pulled up beside me in his uncle's car and said, "Sandra, right? You're friends with my sister." I nodded. He offered me a lift. I declined. The next day he came again. "You know the enter car?" he joked. I laughed, and this time I entered. That small decision changed everything. From there, it started with casual conversations. He would wait outside school sometimes just to see me, buy me gala and lacasera. He had this charm, gentle, warm, respectful. He called me smart, said I was different, that I wasn't like other girls, that I made him feel calm. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. We didn't even touch. It felt innocent. I felt flattered. He began texting me every night. Long messages about how he couldn't sleep unless he heard from me. He would say things like, "You're my peace, Sandra," or "I wish my future wife would be like you." We started seeing each other secretly. I'd lie to my parents, telling them I had group reading or choir rehearsal. One time, I pretended I had malaria just so I could sneak out and see him. My best friend Sarah warned me. She said, "This boy is not serious." But I was already too deep. Then, one afternoon, I went to his place. He lived alone in a single room in a quiet part of town. He had a mattress on the floor, a big speaker, and the curtains drawn. I told myself I was just visiting, but he held my hand and said, "I won't hurt you, Sandra." Then he kissed me. One thing led to another, and it happened. I wish I could say I was forced. But no, I let it happen. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to say no. Because I was scared of losing him. Because I thought it meant love. Afterward, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I went home that day feeling like I'd left a piece of myself behind. For weeks, I avoided him. He would call, text, beg. I ignored it all. I told myself it was just a mistake, that I would forget it, until one morning, I threw up in school. It started with nausea, then tiredness, then mood swings. At first, my mom thought it was malaria. She gave me drugs and hot pap, but nothing changed. Then the smell of fried onions made me gag. That's when I knew I was pregnant. If you're still watching to this stage, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and please share to your family and friends. This might be what they need. At home, I cried for hours when I saw the test result. I bit down on my towel so my siblings wouldn't hear me. I was only 16, a child. I couldn't even tell the difference between Panadol and paracetamol. How would I raise a child? For a whole month, I hid it. I wore baggy clothes. I faked smiles. I avoided people. But the bumps started to show. I couldn't hide forever. I couldn't face my parents. So I wrote a letter, 4 pages. I explained everything, how it happened, how sorry I was. I folded it and placed it under my mom's pillow. That night, I ran away to my friend's place. My mom showed up the next morning with tears in her eyes. She held the letter in one hand and my baby picture in the other. She didn't shout. She didn't slap me. She just held me, tight, like she was trying to hold the broken pieces together. But my father, he didn't say a word to me for weeks. I would walk past him, greet him, and he'd pretend I didn't exist. That silence was the heaviest punishment. I cried every night, not just for what I did, but for how I had disappointed them. The shame was unbearable. Neighbors started whispering, aunties warned their daughters to stay away from me. Even in church, they changed the topic during youth meetings. Teachers called my name during moral lessons. Don't end up like Sandra. I dropped out of school before the 3rd term. Then came the night I gave birth. It was storming heavily. My water broke at 2 a.m. I screamed until my throat was dry. My mother stayed with me, praying and crying. The nurses shouted at me to push, and after hours of pain, I heard the soft cry of my baby girl. When they placed her in my arms, I wept, not because I was sad, but because despite all the mistakes, something so innocent had come from me. I named her Miracle, because that's what she was, a miracle that saved me from giving up. But my story didn't end there. In many ways, that's where it began. Bringing Miracle home wasn't easy. The moment we stepped through the compound gate, I could feel the eyes. Neighbors stood behind curtains, whispering. Auntie Ronki, who used to greet me with smiles, now looked the other way. I was no longer the promising daughter. I was the girl who got pregnant. My mom tried to be strong, but I could see the heaviness in her eyes. She'd sneak into my room at night, kneel beside the bed and pray in whispers, God, help my daughter. Let this child not be a curse. Let this pain not last. Her prayers used to make me cry even harder. My father, he still didn't say much. Weeks passed, then months. He would leave early for work, come back late, eat in silence. Sometimes I wondered if he would ever look at me the same again. But one evening, I came out of the room and saw him standing over Miracle's crib. He was just staring, quiet. He didn't notice I was behind him. Then he whispered, "You have her eyes." It was the first thing he had said directly to me in almost 8 months. That night, I cried myself to sleep, but not because I was sad. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, he would come around. Motherhood at 16 is nothing like how social media shows it. There's no glow, no cute baby outfits, no perfect filters. It's spit up on your chest, diaper leaks, crying at 3 a.m. and again at 4. It's holding a screaming baby while trying to remember the last time you ate or bathed. Some days I hated myself. I hated my reflection. My body had changed. My breasts were sore. I was always tired. There were nights I'd stare at Miracle and wonder, am I even enough for you? I feared I'd ruin her life, the way I ruined mine. But she'd look up at me with those tiny eyes and smile, just once, and that smile would carry me through the next 3 hours of crying. My mom became my biggest help. She showed me how to bathe Miracle, how to tie her back with wrapper when she wouldn't stop crying, how to check her temperature with just the back of my hand. She was still strict, still scolded me if I used too much baby powder or let the feeding bottle stay unwashed too long. But I could feel her love. She never said it out loud, but I knew she forgave me. Maybe not all at once, but in pieces, day by day. We didn't have much money, so going back to school was out of the question. Instead, my mom taught me how to braid hair. I started practicing with my little sister's dolls, then graduated to real people in the compound. I started making small money, enough to buy baby wipes, and sometimes small milk tins. It wasn't much, but it gave me purpose. At 17, I started taking in hair clients properly. Word spread that Sandra they braid well. Some of the same women who once looked at me with disgust started coming to my doorstep asking, "How much for Ghana weaving?" Life is funny like that. I was still the girl who got pregnant in Sigmart too. But now, I was also the girl who worked hard, who didn't run away, who stood by her child. By the time Miracle turned 2, she could call me Mummy with her tiny voice. The first time she said it clearly, I froze. My chest tightened, and I hugged her so tight she started giggling and wriggling away. "Mommy," she kept repeating, smiling with her milk teeth showing. I couldn't stop smiling for days. She became my world, my reason, my second chance. One evening, I was braiding someone's hair when Miracle walked up to me with a stick and said, "I want to draw Daddy." I paused. My hands stopped moving. I said, "What did you say?" She said again, "In cartoon, they have Daddy and Mommy. Where is my daddy?" That was one of the hardest moments of my life. I didn't want to lie, but I didn't know how to explain abandonment to a 2-year-old. So I said, "Your daddy is not here right now, but you have me, and I will always be here. I promise." She nodded, just like that, and went back to playing. But I cried that night, silently, while she slept beside me, because even though I had made peace with my past, some wounds, they don't fully close. Now, Miracle is 6. She's in primary 1. Her favorite color is yellow. She loves to dance. She tells anyone who listens that her mummy is a hairdresser and a princess. I smile every time I hear it. I still don't have much. We live with my parents. I braid hair under a small umbrella in front of our house. I sometimes wish I could go back to school. Sometimes I sit and imagine, what if? What if I had waited? What if I said no that day? What if I had told someone sooner? But what ifs don't raise children. Strength does. And I've learned that even from broken places, something beautiful can grow. I'm not sharing this story for pity. I'm sharing it for that girl out there who thinks one mistake means her life is over. It's not. You are not alone. You are not your shame. You are not your past. You are more than the gossip, more than the whispers, more than the regret. You are not alone. If you've fallen, get up. And if no one will hold your hand, hold it yourself. And to parents, I beg you, don't raise your daughters with only fear. Raise them with love. Be the one they can come to, not the one they hide from. If I had known I could cry in my mother's arms instead of hiding a letter under her pillow, maybe the story would have been different. But this is the one I lived, and I've made peace with it. My name is Sandra. I became a mother at 16, but I found my voice, I found my strength, and I found love in the eyes of the child I never planned for. This is my story, and I survived.